Welcome to Storytimer at Large. Norma Diane Cramer. Hunters outside Valparaiso, Indiana came across her body. They were hunting raccoons and following the banks of Salt Creek. Their hunting dogs found her first. She was lying face down. She was partially clothed. She had been shot twice in the back of the head. The killer had attempted to set her on fire, but the fire only burned her hair and her toes. She was wearing only sandals and a girdle at the time of the fire. Her dress was wrapped around one arm. She was found on August 17, 1968. The medical examiner estimated she had been there since early July 1968, so 6 weeks roughly. No gun was found at the site, and no shell casings were found either. Her purse, with identification inside, was found later on a nearby roadside. In late November 1968, she was finally identified by medical examiners and anthropologists. Dental records were compared as well. Her name was Norma Diane Cramer. Norma Diane Cramer was born on November 11, 1946. She lived with her parents at 365 White Oak Drive in Elyria, Ohio. It's a lovely small house that looks like much of the late 1940s and early 1950s housing for working people in big cities. Norma worked in retail sales in 1968. Looking at what I think is the spot where Norma was found, it seems like she would have had to have walked into that area. She was likely killed there. It would be a difficult thing for someone to carry her into that area, into that spot. She was found on what sounds like is a sandbar in Salt Creek. The spot is near the Salt Creek Bridge off 500 northwest of 350 north. 350 north appears to no longer be there. There's a neighborhood that has taken over that spot that was not there in 1968. On my blog, I'll post a link to the blog, and you can see I take a lot of Google Earth photos in order to fill in my knowledge about where the events took place. Norma Diane Cramer had a former boyfriend, Mark Michael Varasso, and he was living in Portage, Indiana at the time. One newspaper article said that she had traveled to Portage from Ohio to try to rekindle their relationship. She was crying when she left his home on July 2nd, 1968. A gas station attendant across the street also said he saw her leaving there then. The gas station attendant said that she got into a red car. Mark Michael Varasso had just graduated from high school that spring in 1968. He later enlisted in the Army, served out his enlistment, and returned to his hometown of Corry, Pennsylvania. He died in 2021 and seems to have lived a normal sort of quiet life. He was questioned after Norma's remains were identified, and he passed a polygraph examination. I wonder where those two met. It seems odd. She lived in Elyria on the west side of Cleveland, and he lived in Corry, Pennsylvania, which is almost 3 hours away by car. I'm thinking if they had a relationship, it was probably very brief, and most of it took place long distance by mail. Maybe they met at a summer camp or through friends or relatives. It's not clear. Maybe he was living and working in Elyria for a little while. It just seems odd. Who was driving that red car? It seems that Norma Diane Cramer did not own a car, but she got around by hitchhiking. Many young people did in those days, despite the danger. According to a newspaper article, her purse contained a receipt from a drugstore in Beaver, Pennsylvania, dated July 16, 1968. Was it 7/16, 1968? or January 16th, 1968. If she left his house on July 2nd? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. If she left his house on July 2nd, yeah, she did. She left his home on July 2nd. I don't think she would have traveled all the way from Indiana back to Pennsylvania, and that receipt seems odd. I think it might say January 16th, 1/16/68, and I think maybe a 1 can look like a 7 depending on the typeface on an old receipt. Maybe the receipt was a little bit smudged as well. Sometimes the ink on those older ones didn't stay in the spot it was supposed to stay. Her death certificate mentions that her remains were in an advanced state of decomposition. So it seems unlikely to me that she left Portage on July 2nd and hitchhiked to Beaver, Pennsylvania, did a little bit of shopping at the drugstore, only to come straight back to Valparaiso to be murdered. It seems more likely that she was murdered shortly after speaking with Mark Verasso and leaving there in tears. Who was driving that red car? That person might not be her killer. They might have dropped her off and she could have gotten another ride. It was early July and likely pretty hot out. The man who picked her up might have said he knew a place where they could swim and wade and cool off. Perhaps he suggested that this might cheer her up. They parked and walked along into the creek. Maybe she wrapped her dress around her arm to keep it dry and out of the dirt. She kept her sandals on, likely because the rocks in the creek hurt to walk on barefoot. But she wasn't with a man who cared about her and wanted to cheer her up. She was with a killer. He walked behind her and shot her. He sexually assaulted her and then tried to burn her body to eliminate any trace of her. I wonder what evidence was saved in her case. I wonder if any testing can still take place. I wonder who that man was who took her to Salt Creek that day in July 1968. It seems like he would have to have been local to that area in order to know about this spot where you could wade in Salt Creek. Norma Diane Cramer had a young daughter in 1968. Her daughter had to grow up without her mother. Her family deserves answers. Maybe you know something. Maybe you know of a similar murder. Maybe you heard someone talking once. You might have the missing piece that can help solve this murder. If you have information about the murder of Norma Diane Cramer, please call the Porter County Sheriff's Department at 219-477-3130. Rest in peace, Norma Diane Cramer.